Get started. We have a quorum tonight. So first of all, we'll look at the minutes from last month and see if there's any additions or deletions that we need to make from it. And if not, ask for a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. And the minutes carry. Okay, so next we have on our agenda is our bills. And John, do you have anything to say about those tonight?
Sure. Looking at the bills that we have for the month, most of them are dealing with aid. We've got a revolving loan disbursement for RH Holding, which is 1250 South Frontage Road, and a couple of facade improvement grants. So that constitutes most of it. One annoying part of the bills is this $18 bill we constantly have for heat over at 412 Vermillion Street, which I think we've resolved. It was a meter rental that was taken out last week, so that should be about the end of that one.
Okay, that sounds good. So look for a motion to approve the bills for the month.
So moved.
Second? And all in favor, say aye. Aye, and that carries. So, and the first item of business today is Resolution 2022-23 to authorize the Economic Development Levy in our budget for the year. So,
Thank you, Mr. President and HEDRA Commissioners. It's hard to believe that 2023 is coming up here. We've spent a lot of time going through our budgets over the last few months with our city staff and with the city council. The action that we have before you officially is to authorize our economic development levy. So under state statutes, we levy what's termed a Housing and Redevelopment Authority levy, and we authorize that at its maximum amount, which is .008185, which in layman's term means we would generate about $429,000. The amount that we levy there is similar to what we have in years past. The resolution that you have in your packet here authorizes that levy. It's a similar action that the city council took in the adoption of its levy public hearing notification on Monday or Tuesday night. So that constitutes some of the revenue that we have for HEDRA. When we look at the actual budget itself, the council has gone through their review of that, and a lot of the initiatives that we had discussed earlier this year have made it through at this point. So we have in there redevelopment capital using part of our fund balance to work on future acquisitions of Block 28, which is the 5th Street, 4th Street, Vermillion Street area that we've purchased with Country Nights and with Rivertown Liquors, so we would still have funds to go after additional properties there. We would continue the facade improvement grant program that we did this year with funding revolving loan funds similar to previous years, and also allocating money of $100,000 towards our downtown environmental cleanup. This is pertaining to that 1.5 acres north of Art Space that we own and hope to develop in the future. A new initiative that Eric's been working on is our business incubator. We're putting $20,000 into that to work with consultants to investigate the market costs and operations for a business incubator. So we'll have more information on that to come. So those are the initiatives that we had laid out. And one other thing I forgot to mention too here is $50,000 for future industrial park planning. As we all know, we've got Roll Coast marketing that last piece of property right now. We hope we're successful in that, but it's going to also cause a demand for what we do next. And so this money would go towards planning and to determine what involvement we would have in future industrial park expansion. So that's a summary of what we have for the HEDRA budget priorities. The action we have before you tonight is the adoption of the resolution, and I can stand for any questions.
Commissioner Hirsch?
And I could have, I guess, gone back and looked at last year's, all of our materials, but the revolving loan fund, do we usually cap out on that? Or that was the spiral, right, last year, and I just am curious to if that's usually capped. I mean, if we actually disperse those 120,000, or if it's just year to year and dependent.
Commissioner, it's dependent from year to year. Most years we don't. This year, I don't think we. 70,000, yeah. is what we had out of that. So it's part of our fund balance. Funds are paid back into that. But yeah, there's some years which we do cap out. I would say probably every third year we'd cap out, and the other years we fall a little bit short.
So that's still a good, healthy balance to keep
Yes,
there.
yes. There's nothing of concern there as far as we're not allocating enough money towards it. I think if we're doing anything, we may be allocating too much, but I'd like to be in the position that we have that available if something comes up that's of a critical nature.
Thanks.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Thank you, Chair. John, going back in history here, we levy the maximum amount of the .0185. When we combined HRA and the Economic Authority to make one, did we limit ourselves? If we had two different authorities, could we have done twice that?
Yeah. Question comes up is, we have the ability as an EDA HRA to levy both an EDA levy and an HRA levy. And so there's the possibility that we could levy more money through a separate EDA levy on top of the HRA levy. Now, the amount that you can levy through an EDA is very similar. I think it's a slightly smaller. So that is something that when we established HEDRA in 2009, we discussed what to do with that. Because we had an existing HRA levy, do we want to ask for both? At that time, the decision was made, well, let's hold off at this point. If more funding is needed in the future, that's a potential avenue. So that is something, if we wanted to further discuss as we make plans for 2024, that's something that's on the table that we could do.
Do we have to separate again, or can we just do it under this authority?
I don't think we need to separate. I think it's just a funding mechanism. There may be some, I'm not sure if there's any specific restrictions on the use of EDA funding, but it wouldn't require anything different as far as the formation of this body to use it. It's just another funding source.
I won't be on the board at that time, but I think you guys should look at that, because I think it's very, HEDRA has been very good for the community. I think it's a really well-spent tax dollars, levy dollars, back into the community. It just kind of churns things up, and if there's opportunities to make this do more, then at least you should be looking at it in the 2024 map, so that would be my 2 cents. But
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
for this, I make a motion to approve this one.
A second for that, or
Could I,
or one more question?
one more question, yeah. If I may just, it seems like there's a lot of interest in the facade improvement program. Were there a lot of people that were unserved that were interested in that, and is that common, I guess?
Do you want to answer that?
Sure. Commissioner Johnson, yes, there were interested parties that were not able to receive funding as a result of a first-come, first-served process. With that said, with this funding, again, assuming it gets approved, John and I want to look at this program in terms of making sure we're providing opportunities for those that didn't receive fundings in years past to kind of get a first shot at it, and those that may have received fundings in the year prior, maybe make them wait the first 6 months or so. Still give them the opportunity to use it if nobody else is coming forward, but wanting to provide an equitable option, I guess.
Yeah,
But
would there be
more money
opportunities?
would probably get used. Everybody loves grant money, if that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if, could we modify this in the future after approving the amount for, like, say we capped the loans at $3,000 and served 40% more people, or something like that, if we thought that was still going to incent investment?
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson, certainly, and that's assuming the 3 extensions you all approved last month are done by your next meeting, and I've got pictures. We're planning on doing a summary of, okay, here was the facade program in 2022, here's what was spent in public dollars, here's what was leveraged in private dollars, photos before and after of each of the projects, et cetera, so that the HEDRA board can really see the impact that those dollars had, and then we can get into the nuts and bolts, and if we want to, kind of fine tune that program, we can do that for 2023.
Awesome, that was my question. I'm good with the amount, and I think it's a great program.
I just have a follow-up on that. I think we talked a little bit about expanding it beyond downtown and Vermillion Street. Is that on your radar too?
Certainly could be if it's on the
Okay.
HEDRA board on all of your minds. Certainly could look
Yeah,
at
I
expanding
look
that.
at 55, and that's starting to look dated too. I mean, there are some spots, I think, that are just Vermillion Street and downtown that maybe could benefit from that. I don't know when the development in 55 went through, but it's been a little while.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Are you talking about the facade program?
Right.
Didn't we send it up for Vermillion Street? Wasn't there an applicant, up by 18th Street that did
Yep.
go use it?
Yes, yeah, it did go up Vermillion. There was 2 recipients for Vermillion Street. I think Commissioner Horsch was referring to Highway 55.
Or,
Just any other area.
the community.
The community, correct.
I'd agree.
So you said for 2022, we spent $70,000 on the loan program, correct?
In 2022, yeah, we approved $70,000 from the revolving loan program, and then we approved $50,000 in funding from the facade grant program.
The budget was 120 though for the loan program?
For the loan program,
So we
yes.
have $50,000 out there?
We have.
Budgeted dollars.
We've got budgeted dollars from 2022 remaining,
Yeah.
but that's in addition to fund balance that was already in HEDRA's account from monies that weren't spent in, say, 2021, 2020, et cetera, from that loan
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, just to clarify, with our revolving loan fund program, these aren't levied funds that are used, they're fund balance funds that are used for the program itself. So when we're looking at our budgeting standpoint, we're looking at allocations of fund balance as opposed to new funds that are coming in there.
Sure. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so we've had a motion to approve, and we have a second, so any other questions? If not,
Commissioner Golish, I just want to make one note that it is resolution number 2022-30. There was a typographical error on the agenda, but that is the way it was included in your packet, is 2022-30.
okay, that sounds good. So we have a motion to approve in a second, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, and that carries. So next on the agenda is a recommendation for the land sale of Intech Plastics. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Golbush. Yes, what's being asked of HEDRA this evening is a formal recommendation on a potential land sale. The piece of property that the city currently owns, 3.1 acres, is currently vacant. It's located north of Cranky Ape, south of the water tower, and directly east of the current Intech Plastics facility. It's a pretty low area, but it would get built up with time. The property was a piece that staff included with the application to the state for the Minnesota Investment Fund and the Job Creation Fund. At the $1.54 a square foot, that piece of property had a valuation of just about $208,000. That essentially was put in towards that application. The state likes to see the city that's making the application have some sort of skin in the game. That was essentially our proposed skin in the game. The project that Intech was proposing to the state and seeking funding is a roughly 60,000 square foot expansion, creating 46 jobs and about an $8 million private investment into the community, into their facility specifically. They were awarded $450,000 in job creation funding, which includes an additional $275,000 in capital investment rebate, as well as $975,000 from the Minnesota Investment Fund. That $975,000 is actually in the form of a loan from the state that goes through the city. That's going to be repaid over 7 years at 1%. So with that, we would be essentially providing that land to the project in exchange for landing the project. The city of Hastings and the state of Minnesota was competing with another city in Ohio, hence the state's participation in the project. I said we'd be providing it to them, right? And at your meeting last month, you just rescinded your land for $1 program, or that formal piece, right? So you're probably thinking, well, Eric, why are we just rescinded that? What are we doing that the very next meeting? This is a really good example, actually, of the way in which we can utilize providing that land at a reduced price when we know we're leveraging or we know we're competing against somebody else for that project. And so when we look at this, a 60,000 square foot expansion, $8 million private investment, 46 jobs, paying an average cash wage of $32 plus benefits, this is 3 acres well spent and $208,000 well invested. In addition, that $975,000 in MIF funding, the city is able to capture some of that if it so chooses, up to $100,000 rather than return it to the state. So this is a good deal for the city of Hastings, in my opinion. So with that, we would be bringing the proposed land sale to City Council. That would be on October 3rd, the same time in which Intech Plastics site plan would be before the city council for approval. But we did want to bring this forward to HEDRA for recommendation, as you are typically the formal recommending body or sale body for industrial land. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Thank you. Just confirming then, Intech, is this all based on Intech still being awarded this, that Minnesota got this over Ohio, or is that confirmed?
The
The
contracts are not yet signed. We did have a kickoff meeting with the state earlier this week to make sure there weren't any remaining questions with the grant contract agreements for the MIF funding, as well as then the loan agreement between the city and Intech. All signs look very, very good, but the signatures are not on the papers just yet, but I expect that to be done by next week.
So they chose Minnesota over Ohio. Will this, if we approve this, would that stay pending that it still is done?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
can we
Commissioner-
put that in the agreement that we're all in favor, I'm in favor of it, but if it doesn't go forward, it's coming right back to us?
Yep, Commissioner Ryan, yeah, it would be drafted as such that, first right of reentry, or that we would not turn it over until it was approved, built, et cetera.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
At this point, is this just in support of the project, or is some of that financing from the state contingent on us approving this?
So at this point, we're only seeking recommendation on the land sale itself. We're not seeking any additional feedback with respect to the state financing.
And was the state financing contingent on, because it sounds like they based it off of what we said we'd provide. If we don't provide this, would that throw some of those other funds in jeopardy?
It was scored based upon the city participation, yes.
Okay.
We've provided the valuation of there. If that were to change, they would want to take a look at this again.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we're looking for a motion to recommend the city council approve the land sale to Intact Plastics for $1 per acre.
A motion to approve.
And a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And opposed, and that carries. Next is our reports and information, so we'll start with our Block 1 update.
Sure. Commissioners, last year, earlier this year, we entered into an exclusive agreement with Mint Development for the potential development of property north of Art Space, that 1.5 acres on Block 1. That exclusivity runs through September 10th of this year. We've had conversations with Mint Development within the last month. Mint has indicated that they are no longer interested in pursuing a project at this time, nor are they interested in extending any sort of exclusive rights that they would have. So at this point, there's no action that the authority would need to take pertaining to this. It just expires as of the 10th, but just wanted to bring forward the update on the project, that Mint is not pursuing anything at this time on that site. We would be free to negotiate any sale and development of this site with another party at any other time. So I can stand for any questions related to that.
Any questions? Commissioner Anderson?
At the time, thank you. At the time we went into negotiations with Mint, were there other developers interested in the property?
Commissioner, we had one other potential development interest in that with the Spades project. I have not spoken to that entity in the last few months. Well, the last time I spoke to him wasn't more related on that site, but more on development potential in Hastings. So I'm doubtful that individual would be looking to move forward on this site in any certain time, but might be interested in the future, is how I'd characterize it.
Thanks.
Commissioner Horst?
It helped me remember, I spent a long weekend visiting several major cities in Kentucky. But it seemed to me when I was going down in the waterfront in Louisville and Covington and Cincinnati, most of the waterfront is public-private land. I saw very little that I didn't think the public had put in some dollars to whatever it was, a music hall, a park, or whatever. How much have we explored that kind of scenario for that parcel? Something that's not just private, but maybe a public-private purpose where, I don't know what that would be. I thought about it for a little bit. sure people in the community have ideas, but how much of that have we explored in the past?
Yeah, I mean, from a private-public partnership, we haven't explored that specifically. What we have looked at is a desire to develop that property as something, you know, and looking primarily at the private sector in doing that we might be able to provide some sort of, could provide the land at either market or some sort of discount to prod that along, but looking for some sort of development on that property. As far as how that would happen from a partnership standpoint, yeah, perhaps on that one, if it could be some sort of, you know, public-private partnership.
And Commissioner Horsch, and speaking with Min Development on that one, some feedback that they provided in terms of, you know, that kind of public-private partnership concept, that it's in a TIF district already, that parcel is. And so even just the presence of TIF presents some public participation already in that project, more than likely. They indicated that due to the size of the property and the encumbrances, mainly the floodplain and the easement for the overhead power lines, that between the rising construction costs and the interest rates going up on them as it did over their period, even with full 26-year TIF, the project wasn't large enough in terms of the number of apartments in addition to the commercial space that it could carry the debt that the project would take. So they basically came back and said that piece on its own isn't quite big enough in the current development marketplace.
That's where I'm wondering maybe if the, you know, in the future, we're looking more towards, you know, not so much a private development, but more, you know, a public kind of use for that parcel. Again, you know, we've got some great things down there. The amphitheater is wonderful. The path is wonderful. We've got some real good use down there. I don't know what else could complement that development, you know, that public use down there that would draw people to the community. So just a thought.
One question for you, John. I know we had the future industrial part, I'm sorry, where is it? The environmental cleanup is part of our thing. Was that for that parcel? And then we do have to
It
have
is.
some kind of a contract to be able to make that work. How does that?
Yeah, we do have funds in the budget to assist with the cleanup of that property. We were awarded a grant a couple of years ago to assist with that cleanup. Roughly half of that was covered by a state grant, and then half of it by the funds that we would provide to the site. Now, that grant has expired, but I'm in continued conversation with Metropolitan Council, the granting entity, and they stated that if another project was to come forward, that it's very likely that we could reapply and gain that grant back.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we didn't still have that option.
Right,
because
right.
there's
So I'm
some work to do on that
a little bit of a
property.
hedge there, that if, you know, if something were to happen in 2023 and we needed to clean that property up, if we had somebody on board, great, we've got funds to do it.
Yep, that sounds good. Commissioner Anderson?
To that point too, what if we were the applicant? Could we still get that grant if it was some sort of public?
It would all, Commissioner, it'd all be tied upon a development outcome. So they're looking for typically looking for some sort of contract for development that would give them some certainty that something would happen and this type of economic benefit would occur. So that's the difficult thing, is you need to have a project on board to be eligible for the grant funding.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on that one? Otherwise, let's move on with our incubator. Hastings Business Incubator Project Update.
Thank you, Commissioner Goblish. Yes, so the major update with respect to the business incubator is a tour that John and myself took to the St. Croix Valley Business Innovation Center. That's a partnership between the University of Wisconsin River Falls, the local technical college, and the city of River Falls, as well as both counties in that area. Roughly a $6 million project, all said and done. About $4.5 million in federal funds, a loan of about $800,000 from the city of River Falls EDA, and then various sponsorships and partnership dollars through local community organizations help kind of bring that to fruition. That one's focused on really a mix of uses. They have quite a bit of warehouse manufacturing space, as well as some co-working retail office space as well that's available. And then a whole second floor that's currently available, as well as some commercial kitchen space that's available for rent. We took the time to tour that building to get a sense for one, okay, how did they land on what they landed on? The city of River Falls is very similar to the city of Hastings in that they had a large industrial park. They were looking to essentially create businesses that they could then sell land to. As they got bigger and didn't fit there anymore, boom, we can just place them. And so they decided to invest in that building, create that. It's more unique and probably more robust than what we're looking at in terms of a multi-million-dollar investment in a brand-new building and on some very nice industrial land. But it was still helpful to see kind of their process and then see the day-to-day administration of that. They have one full-time administrator, a couple of students from the university that come in on work study. So it was helpful, and they've been, as has the city of River Falls, been helpful, as John and I have had questions for them in terms of their process and getting there to learn more about the putting together an incubator. Following that, we met with a general contractor, walked the site and got their initial feedback. We've also reached out to architects to, again, try and solicit, who's got some experience in that, recognizing, John and I kind of went and looked at this big shiny thing and got a lot of big ideas, and then reminded ourselves that that's not what we're going to be going after. We're looking for a quality interim use for a building that we currently have that long-term may get redeveloped. And so we kind of came down to earth again and said, okay, with what we're looking to accomplish, how best can we do that and how efficiently can we do that? And so that's what we're looking to in terms of partnering with an architect, eventually a general contractor, and answering some of those questions. And we hope to have more at your meeting in October.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions tonight? I think we're good to move on to the next item, so. Shovel-ready update, shovel-ready development site update.
Thank you, Commissioner Goblish. The Rocos team, in your packet for this meeting was included their draft offering memorandum, essentially their site brochure that they've been providing to their various development partners. They sent us proofs of the new signs that will be going up on the site. Those should be up the next week or two. John and I just approved those proofs for printing. And then I spoke with Raisa earlier this week. She's in conversation with two major industrial developers in this market currently that both have interest. They're looking at sites also in Cottage Grove and Inver Grove Heights, but they are interested. And also two end users, one in market, one out of market. The one out of market, they're currently mapping their suppliers for them so they can get a sense for what that would look like if they established here. So some good initial boots on the ground, so to speak, and some connections that frankly John and I wouldn't have had to really just put the bug in some people's ears that do deals like this. So we're hopeful to have more robust as the months come, but some good initial feedback that we're getting.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Vaughn?
Thank you. I think you just answered my question, but if we had this broker, would we allow an industrial developer to take over the 50 acres and then sit on it and sell it as they go? Or currently we kind of control what we do with it. Are we giving up any rights to that by using a broker saying, what if they comes in, we found an industrial developer from Texas that wants 50 acres in Minnesota, and they buy it, but it sits. It doesn't create jobs. Do we have authority to say that's not what we're thinking?
Yeah, Commissioner Vaughn, absolutely we have the ability to say that's not what we're thinking. In fact, not either of the four that I just mentioned, but she said there was a third that said, can I lock it up for 18 months and then go out and see what I can, they said they want to usually get to 60 to 70%, pre-lease before they really build anything.
Right.
And, Risa was saying, if you want to go that route, it's an opportunity, but then it's a decision that you're making, and potentially it could work out, potentially it could not. And then kind of what's that risk and reward
Right.
in terms of potentially tying it up in that situation. I don't think that's necessarily our goal, but that I think, even though we're working with a broker, we're still not required to strike the first deal that comes. Ultimately, if it doesn't work in the eyes of HEDRA or the city, it doesn't work. That's the beauty of landowners. But yeah.
My recommendation is as we go into workshops or the vision of the future industrial options in Hastings. John mentioned it, should we be hiring industrial, someone that else that does it, so we don't have to be in the role of owning land, buying land, and trying to find somebody that does it? I think that should be part of the discussion to help guide you to say, that's not what I was envisioning. I envisioned them to go find 15 different businesses and it's gonna be all these jobs. That's kind of how I thought it, but I'm not opposed to one person goes and finds all of them and still creates the same job. I'm okay with that end game, but I think it goes to that next step for this board of what's the next industrial park? Is it us doing it? Are we buying the land, or should we let industrial people say, hey, we can connect you with the right people to get those land? So I think it's a future discussion item.
Yeah, and the desire for industrial, some other feedback she said she got was, 50 is great, but I need 100 to start in terms of acreage. That we look at that and think it's a lot of land, and in the industrial marketplace at this point in time, it's not big enough for a lot of them. Now, I think we're in a nice sweet spot in terms of our proximity to the Minneapolis and St. Paul CBDs, and that acreage and that availability is still going to be attractive. But in terms of that future planning, in terms of acreage, we're going to need more than a 40 somewhere.
Okay, you use the terms, Eric, in market, out of market. Can you explain that to me? When you said there was a couple people that are interested, you used the term in market, out of market, that there are two different groups looking at it. So I'm not familiar with those two terms.
Certainly,
So
yeah,
you can, thanks.
Commissioner Horsley, thank you. I appreciate you calling me on those acronyms. I'm sure the people at home don't know either. So that in-market is looking at that Minneapolis-St. Paul regional metropolitan area, maybe more broadly, roughly in the state. That's kind of that in-market. That out-of-market is, that person in Texas or that person in North Carolina, or which RISA goes internationally. Businesses work all over. And that's, I think, really where some of that extra value comes in, is that extra reach outside of the state that, again, John and I don't get to. So that's what I meant by in and out of market.
Good. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move on to our updates.
Site development updates. Got a lot of things that are, they're finishing up construction here, and some that are just starting, so that's good news. On the opening up side, the Quill at Schoolhouse Square, we're scheduled to go through our final inspections on that next week. So that should be open for business very shortly, which is great to see. That's 90 senior living units there. Also on the just open is the Fleet Farm, I think, as everyone knows, in town. That's open. Probably half the town's been in there already, which is great. Other things that have broken ground here, we broke ground in the last week on the Vermilion Acres Senior Housing Development on County Road 47 Riverwood Drive. They're doing footings and foundations right now. It's kind of a unique project in which it's going to be a component build project. So the various components of that facility, modulars, are going to be built off site and then trucked in and installed. So it's a lower price alternative to construction, and also speeds up the construction time. So typically with an apartment project like this, you're looking at a 1-year build out. This one could be done in 5-6 months. So something that could be coming open before spring. New development going on. We have the, we finished up some approvals for Heritage Ridge for their final edition. They're going to start some grading hopefully this fall, with lot development in the spring for those final 36 lots. And then stencil development, we're waiting on some final environmentals. They're gearing to go there. Enclave development down on by Colburn's, same position, well, similar position. It should be about any day that they would start construction on that one. We're waiting for them to schedule a pre-construction meeting and get going on that, so that should be happening certainly prior to the next HEDRA meeting. We did have a new application that came in that area for Sweet Living, which is a 32-unit senior housing facility that would have memory care and assisted living. It would be located right on the corner of 33rd Street and Vermilion, right next to Terry's Hardware. So that proposal is separate from the Enclave Apartments, and will be going forward to Planning Commission on Monday night, and then to the council after that. On the Confluence, things continue to move on that one with some of the interior items that they're doing. We have been in discussions with them, sharing the concerns that were raised at the last meeting about having a better idea of what's going on within the project. So as we look at that October meeting, we'll have more information for you. I believe that we'll have representatives either from Confluence or perhaps maybe schedule a tour of the facility in conjunction with the meeting there so we can get a better idea of what's going on with that building. And that's all I have.
Any questions or comments? Okay. I just want to bring one thing up. I know the construction of Highway 61 has been coming out, and I don't know, at some point, maybe as a group, we should sit down and talk about how that's gonna impact different areas of the community, and maybe there's an opportunity for HEDRA to be involved in some of that. So I don't know if that's for here, but I know it's a long ways away, but I think it's a good time to get started with it, so.
Good point, Commissioner. I will put that on the agenda for next month, and in the very least, have an update to present to you on that and see if there could be more from that.
Great. Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, we'll look for a motion to adjourn. And second, and
Second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye. Let's go watch some football.